Welcome to another bonus episode of Let Me Be Frank podcast with myself, Simon Houston, man himself, Frank McAvenny. And it's a close season, so we'll have to find things to talk about, but there is no shortage of things to talk about this week.
Not in Glasgow.
Never
Never shortage.
Because the big question will be who is going to be in the Rangers dugout for the start of the season, who's going to be challenging Brendan Rodgers, and now it looks, well, if you're to believe reports, that Russell Martin's as good as got the job.
It looks a stick on. So I don't think we would probably want to talk about it if it wasn't, but it looks a certainty that Russell's coming in.
Aye.
And
by the way, you were first with the news a few weeks ago about why it wouldn't be Steven Gerrard.
Well, I did say, and I did ask the listeners to come back to me because they know obviously more than what I know about when it comes to income tax.
Aye.
But it was very. Somebody very influential told me that he can't come back because he'd have to give away fortunes, and people were saying to me he would lose millions, but he's got fortunes, so that wouldn't matter. And I'm saying, don't be so stupid. Nobody loses 2 million.
Well, very interestingly, on TalkSport there this morning, Ali McCoist said to Alan Brazil that he had spoken to Steven Gerrard, and Gerrard had said to him it would be very difficult for him to come back. So Alan Brazil was speculating that might have been the reason.
Yes.
But Ali wasn't for it.
Typical TalkSport are so far behind the times, aren't they?
But an interesting appointment. So who would have thought Rangers would have a manager that's a member of the Green Party?
I didn't know how long that would take to come up to it.
Rangers of the Green Party. He's a vegan. He's studied Buddhism, and he goes out with Lucy Pinder.
Yes.
Remember Lucy Pinder?
Do I? Yeah, I do.
Sorry. Hey, what?
No, everyone knows Lucy Pinder. She's a beautiful girl. So he's done well when it comes to that. So she's lovely. But listen, everyone's having a go at and saying he's not a good manager. But I look at it the other way. He's a young manager starting off, and he's not done too well with his first couple of clubs.
Well, he got Southampton promoted, but
he got him promoted. He didn't change his ways, but that's part of the learning process.
All sorts of records about the number of passes that his teams.
I know, but I look at it as if it's part of the process going through as a manager. He'll learn off that. I mean, who would have thought Ange Postecoglou would have learned? And then last week we seen it, or a couple of weeks ago, he changed his system.
He was prepared to change, yeah.
So it's all about learning, and I think Russell Martin, to be fair to the guy, he's done his trade, he's done his apprenticeship.
Well, if you look at social media, a lot of the Rangers fans were underwhelmed.
Yeah.
Right, I think they were expecting something else. They were expecting somebody bigger. They were expecting someone who was tried and tested, and someone that could challenge Rodgers straight away. And what they're getting, to me, looks like a project. You know? And
it's a chance. It's a gamble.
Aye.
But gambles have worked before.
But there was also comparisons. Some Rangers fans were saying, but look at Ange. Ange turned up at Celtic without any track record. But that's nonsense.
Yeah,
because they'd won the league in Australia, he'd won the league in Japan, he'd won an international tournament with Australia. Does it all count?
It does count. Yeah, of course it does. Of course, but nobody knew him. I understand what they're saying. Nobody knew him when he came here, but he'd done his apprenticeship as well. He'd done a big apprenticeship.
I know, but ask someone in Melbourne who he was.
Of course.
But Russell Martin's completely different in that his managerial career so far has met MK Dons, Swansea and Southampton, not having any great success with any of them.
Well, apart from taking Southampton up.
He took Southampton up.
That's it.
And then didn't last very long after that. But
that's not an easy task.
No, it's not. It's not. Has he got what it takes for the Glasgow Goldfish Bowl?
Only time will tell. Only time will tell. Who knows? Brendan's got a year left in his contract, so I would like to see. That's my interest. I would like to see him signing this year, signing on for
Rodgers extending.
I would love to see him extend.
He made it fairly clear on the pitch at Tannadice after the Celtic won the league that he was going nowhere.
Yeah.
And he was driving that point home.
Yeah.
That anyone who thinks he's going to up sticks.
No.
We shall see. We'll see. But on other transfer news, Danny Ings, that's a name you know well. So he's been linked with Celtic. Would he be a good signing?
I think he'd be a great signing for Celtic, yeah, because we never replaced Kyogo. They've not replaced him. Listen, Adam, he's learning. I think he's going to be a wonderful player. I think he's not near the finished article yet, but he's a great player. He looks a bit honest boy.
Is there a future at Celtic for Adam Ida? Even though we just signed him a year ago.
I think.
What do you think's going to happen?
I think so. The difference see if he signs someone like Danny Ings, Danny will not play every game.
Yeah.
Which will mean that Adam will come in. And you don't want to play, I don't want to play Maida through him. I think he's better in the wing.
Mm-hmm.
Although he scores a lot of goals. But I think he's better out there. He terrifies people. So Danny Ings would come in and play, and even if he went on play the hour and get Adam on, that's the way it's going to be. I think somebody like him, or Vardy, I would take Vardy. I mean, I know they're talking about him going to Rangers, but I'd take Vardy at Celtic as well. They're goal scorers. The two of them are goal scorers.
Mm-hmm.
Can't take anyone. They're just natural predators.
Yeah.
And that's what, get them up here. They're good names.
Yeah.
So either or, I would take at Celtic Vardy or Danny Ings. The two of them know where they're back. I mean, people keep saying you don't look up. You don't have to look up. Goals don't move. People say, why do you not look up? The goals don't move. It's the only thing in the pitch that doesn't move.
Yeah.
So you don't have to keep an eye on where they're going.
I'm sure you've played with a few players that didn't move either, right?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But interesting though for you, look, with the transfer windows, because when you were playing, there was no such thing as a transfer window. You could have moved at any time.
Yeah.
How would you cope to a transfer window? Do you think if you knew a club was sniffing around and you were desperate to go, and the window was hours away from shutting, that would be a big distraction for you in your life.
Well, I don't think so. Listen, when I was at West Ham, there was only one team I was going to that would move. John Lyall, the manager, he spoke to me. There was Italian teams, there was German teams, there was people coming in, and English teams, but obviously not at the top, at the bottom end of the first division Premiership at the time. Yeah. But there was teams there trying to get me.
Yeah.
And I said to John, I'm not going anywhere, and except Celtic. I didn't want to leave. I didn't want to go. Don't get me wrong. I didn't want to go. I didn't want to leave West Ham. No. But John knew that West Ham was my team, and if Celtic come in for me, then I'd like to speak to them. Yeah. And that's what happened. John wouldn't stand in my way, and to be fair, he was changing his system a wee bit anyway, and different players coming in at West Ham, which didn't suit my game.
Here, listen, I'm going to go off piste a wee bit because this is a subject we discussed on this.
I usually go on.
Go on a piste. We discussed this a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
When we paid a tribute to David Cooper, I think, and it was the anniversary of his passing.
Yes.
And we got on the subject of that Scotland Uruguay match in the World Cup when Graham Souness was dropped and Paul McStay played.
Yes.
And you were saying how Paul was maybe didn't have what it took to control that match. There was a comment come in the YouTube channel the other day saying Paul was controlling games for Celtic since 1982, 4 years before that. And I was looking at it and thinking, I'm looking at.
And I wasn't being disrespectful to Paul.
No, because I know exactly what you meant.
We're talking about Uruguay.
Yeah.
That's the game. No, it doesn't matter if it was against Denmark, against Germany. That's different. Paul could have handled them. But against Uruguay, who were the animals, they were animals. They knew every trick in the book. That's all I meant. Souness was used to that.
Yeah. No, the reason I mention is, look, we do look at the comments, guys. There's loads and loads of comments, lots of positive comments, some lovely comments about Frank and his career, and that's not just from Celtic fans, from Rangers fans too.
Thank you.
And lots of really good positive comments about the podcast and the extra shows that we do. But it was just to let you know that we read them. We don't always reply, don't always like.
Yeah, I like your podcast. The comments are saying, we give the guest time to talk, which is a lot of podcasts don't.
No, that's we treat it more as a kind of chat show than anything else. Don't we get someone?
We're not Piers Morgan. We let them talk.
Aye, we do let them talk. But anyway, so to go back to where we started this wee extra episode with the Russell Martin thing. So the clock's ticking. Rangers have European qualifiers before we know it.
Yeah,
we're already in. We're in June now. So it's only a few weeks' time before they'll be having to play some form of European qualifier. What's the first thing he will have to do if he gets?
He's got to look at his squad. He's got to look at him. I think he's got, as a first 11. He's got no bad squad. I think he's got no bad team. I think you look at him, you say, well, yeah, he's got a chance. They didn't quite do it with the last manager. Yeah. But who's to know that Russell come in and just put his arm around their shoulder and say, look, the first thing he'll do is everyone's getting a chance.
Yeah.
And they could be knocked out. If they're knocked out of the Champions League straight away, then they'll have to buy players to go on the season.
But that's the thing, though, because if he does get knocked out, the qualifiers very, very early, and we've seen it time and time again. If he loses the first game against Celtic, or he drops a couple of points early on, the pressure will be instant and it will be huge. You know, so and a 39-year-old guy who has.
I don't think it makes any difference now, because look what Barry done. Barry didn't get beat with Celtic, did he? And he's out the door. So it's not his case. You've still got to win. The bread and butter is the league. It doesn't matter what anyone says, Simon. You've got to win. You can't. This is for Celtic and Rangers. You cannot turn up playing against Rangers and play well, and then not turn up the following week against Wraith Rovers or Motherwell or St Mirren.
Yeah,
you've got to do it every single week.
Yeah,
you know, it's just a given that you do that. I mean, it's just for both teams.
Again, and don't want to dwell too much on TalkSport and Ali McCoist, but listening to him this morning, he was asked about, you know, how come last year Rangers were able to beat Celtic a couple of times and perform pretty well in Europe, but then lose to, who did they lose to? You know, St Mirren, Motherwell, Queen's Park, all these teams.
Queen's Park was a nail in the coffin for the last manager.
But the 2 points he made, number one, you know, the Celtic and Rangers have to turn up. Yeah. They've got to just be there and out-muscle these lesser teams and then do the business. Yeah. But he also made the point that Rangers against Celtic and against a big European team are playing against a team that are coming onto them and attacking them. Yeah. So therefore they almost become a counter-attacking team. Whereas playing against the lesser teams in Scotland, they've got to be the one that's opening the defence.
That's a good point. But sometimes they've got to go up to the park as well. But the problem with me is we get told, but Billy McNeil was, for an example, you know, and I know Alec McLeiston was the exact same when he was the manager. You win your battle. You know, whoever I'm playing against centre half. I win my battle against them, then we'll win a game.
Yeah.
You know, and if you're in the midfield, you win the battle against who you are. Just concentrate on that for the first 15 minutes. You win that battle, and then hopefully your ability will shine through once you win that battle.
Yeah,
and that's what you've got to do. And I think Rangers done it. They won the battle in the midfield. I think.
Yeah.
You know that Raskin.
He's a good player.
He's a good player, but he doesn't do it every week. Yeah. And I'm not having a slant at boy, but against Celtic he was outstanding, and he had a job to do. He went and done it. He didn't let Callum, when Callum played on the ball, he didn't let Engels get in it. You know, it was like a pest.
Before we wrap up, and you brought Callum McGregor's name up there, how's Callum going to be next season? For somebody who'd never ever lost a cup final at any age group, man or boy, and then the circumstances with that. I mean, sure he'll cope with it fine, and he'll have another good season.
That's his first time losing, so
I know.
But you know, I was a wee bit. You don't show that. You know, everyone's saying that's great. He's showing what it means to Celtic.
The crying.
Do that in there. You know, don't show. It's like I'm old school, and I'm a great believer. You know, you get punched in the nose, you don't show it hurt you. Yeah. You know, you don't show it. You get a kick. You get up. You don't show that people are hurting you because you've got to win that battle. And I think, although it was dreadful to watch the game is. I mean, listen, it was probably the two worst cup finals I've seen in many years. Mm-hmm. You know, Man United against Tottenham, and then Celtic against. Oh, it was awful.
Aye. No.
You know, Aberdeen,
the Man U's first game was absolutely brutal.
You know,
it was.
I know, but
the Scottish Cup final,
that was terrible.
Aberdeen hadn't crossed the halfway line in 32 minutes. I'd looked at my watch.
But Celtic never had a shot.
I know. I mean, so what does that tell you?
What does that tell you?
It must have been. I mean, I was at the game, but I would love to see what the commentators were saying about that.
We're not going to score. Celtic are not going to score when they take a corner and Engels takes it to Bernardo. And Bernardo passes it into McGregor. McGregor gives it to Taylor. Taylor gives it to Carter Vickers, and he gives it back to keeper.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking, really, it's our corner.
I know. By the way,
and we scored for a corner. So
before the pedants get in touch, when I said they hadn't crossed the halfway line in 32 minutes, they hadn't got anywhere near the Celtic box. They weren't in the final third, and that's a fact. And Schmeichel had touched the ball twice, and both I think were passed back.
I'm hoping that Callum, who's never been beaten, or takes this and takes it the way it should be taken, and you go, I don't like that feeling.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know, we might see a different side.
I get knocked out. I get beat out of time at Hampden when I was at St Mirren, three semi-finals, won the League Cup, semi-finals, knocked out. I mean, never got to Hampden, but you know what I mean.
I know.
It's a horrible feeling.
I know.
So it stands you in good stead, and I hope that Callum just gets, he's got to get players running about him, because I think the players that came on weren't up to scratch.
I think we'll see
I think we missed a Tatty.
We did, yeah.
I just think he's a wonderful, wonderful Tat.
I think we'll see the true Engels next season.
I hope so, because but the same as Adam Adair, he's got a pre-season coming up.
Yeah.
So enjoy, because I know Brendan will put you through it.
Yeah,
enjoy it.
Aye, Brendan will be hurt as well.
Brendan will be hurt, but he'll come back pre-season. He's never done a pre-season last year.
Yeah.
So the boy will,
hit the ground running.
Let's do 20 million he took off after an hour. That's what the fans are saying.
Yeah.
£20 million for the two of them.
Yeah.
And that was not good enough. But you've got to step up, as I say. I mean, I look at it as it's a stepping stone. We won a double. Great for us. Not so good for Rangers. But now it's a new start.
And it's a new start. It's a level playing field.
I wouldn't put past Rangers to come fan out of the blocks.
Okay, we'll see. Well, lots of weeks ahead of us to discuss it as the summer progresses and the transfers.
The problem is nobody knows what they're going to get. Nobody knows. I mean, I'd love to say that the Rangers owners are going to put 60 million. It's 20 million, but they're not even putting it in their own money. So I don't think 20 million in today's game is going to get you much. But
I think, time will tell.
Time will tell.
We'll address that once we know exactly what the kind of smoke and mirrors of this takeover, what the shakedown actually shows. This is what's going to happen. This is the money available, and then they can go and buy players, but they've got to have to do it quickly.
Well, one thing about Russell is get contacts down south. So if people that's just maybe not getting a loan deal, maybe not getting in the first team, he'll get them up to Rangers. I mean, that's his contacts will be second to none. So I wouldn't write him off too quickly.
Okay, well, we shall see, and we'll be keeping a close eye on things as the weeks progress. So, hope you enjoyed it. A wee extra bit of bonus content for you. Please hit subscribe. Do the usual. Follow us, free to follow.
Free.
And as I'm going to be saying in the main show as well, there'll be some nice wee surprises in the coming weeks as well for subscribers too. Frank will be digging into his box of tricks and for wee giveaways, so look forward to that. And we'll join you again soon for another episode of Let Me Be Frank. Take care.